Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for making time to be here tonight. I know we're expecting some more folks, and the weather is lousy, so I really appreciate you making time to be here. I want to give a special thank you to Stan Lukowitz for hosting us here at the National Hotel, and thank you to Jim and now Jake Geedy of KVGC for recording this discussion. We'll have a sound file later and a link for you to listen to if you want to follow up and just remind yourself of what was said today. Thanks to all of you and our panelists who came a distance for making it here today. Our sponsoring partners, this is the commercial, Amador County Business Council, of which Rob is currently the executive director, Rob Aragon. Amador Council of Tourism, Sandy Anderson, our president, is here today. Amador Economic Partnership, and the Amador Vintners Association. I thought what I would do, a couple of things. You know me, I'm about show and tell. There are show and tells there and not enough of them. So what I would like to suggest is you use this handy dandy sign-in sheet and check the box that you would like to have the files, check the box of the files that you would like to be sent to you electronically. Certainly you are welcome to some of those copies. Just saying, if we run out, we've got options. And either way, I'd really like you to add your email to this so that we can get you the link to the recording that we're doing afterward, that will be available afterward. So I thought what I would do is first give you a quick overview of why we're here today, and then turn it over to Rob, and he'll introduce our panelists. So just to review, we conducted a marketing study back in October 2014. There's some copies out there. 2 issues were identified: the need for a sustainable tourism funding source and a tourism promotion infrastructure. Amador Council of Tourism's Board of Directors decided to move forward with the Tourism Marketing District in summer of 2015. After gathering signatures representing strong support for the formation of the district, Amador Council of Tourism borrowed funds from the Amador County Board of Supervisors in December 2015 to establish a district. Meetings were held at that point. I know all of you remember getting notices, and some of you were there, and I really appreciate the time you made for that. Meetings were held to draft the marketing district plan. A copy is on the counter. And establish funding levels. After receiving input from lodging partners, the petition drive started late May 2016. We are still in the petition drive now. So that's the overview, and then I want to introduce you to Rob Aragon. I have to find his bio here. I made everybody send me a bio. In addition to being the executive director of the Amador County Business Council, Rob is a real estate developer, land use advisor with over 30 years of planning, engineering, and infrastructure implementation experience. His collaborative approach originally brought him to Ione over 20 years ago as the engineer on the Castle Oaks project. Today, he's involved in spearheading the remaining undeveloped portion of Castle Oaks and spends a fair amount of time supporting a variety of regional real estate implementation efforts. Rob, a graduate of California State University, Sacramento, is married to Stephanie and lives in neighboring Placer County, where he enjoys CrossFit, motorcycling, and raising his 2 girls, Isabella and Gianna. Rob Aragon, thank you, Rob, for being here today. He's a cool guy, and he's my friend, too.
Well, thank you, Maureen. Much appreciated. Very excited, actually, to be here. A little bit more about myself. Many of you I know in the room. I called very, very close friends in this room, and will continue to do that. We've been involved in Castle Oaks for a very long time. We're going to continue to be involved at Castle Oaks for a very long time. And candidly, in the county. I've been really a spearhead in the county to really try and evolve the infrastructure discussion here in the county at a variety of levels, whether it's water or wastewater or general infrastructure. It's such an important piece to what we do. More importantly, though, within the last 120 days or so, the Business Council asked me to kind of help organize and coordinate their efforts, which is today is a part of that mission. The Business Council, if you are unaware, is a consortium of 25 or so different business interests, landowner interests within the county, kind of working on common goals. This is but one of their initiatives, this Tourism Improvement District. In addition to spending my time in Amador, which is a fair amount, I do spend a lot of time in Sacramento County and Folsom and Placer County, really with a focus on infrastructure and moving that economic engine. So Maureen and I have been collaborating to really just to try and evolve the conversation. I don't think that there's going to be any hesitancy today to ask any and all questions. That's really part of the mission today, is get your questions out. We've got a panel of experts which we hope will be able to answer those questions, and if they can't, I would encourage you to follow up, because I think we will be able to find them if we can't today in that unpredictable event that we couldn't answer the question. So with that, let me then follow over to our panel, starting with Marianne McAlay. She's a good friend of mine. I've been working with her now the last few years in Folsom. As a full disclosure, I sit on an economic development board that she is a part of. I'm on that board in Folsom. She's been a very big collaborator with me, but a little bit more specifically about her. Marianne is a senior vice president with the Greater Folsom Partnership. This nonprofit collaborative effort on behalf of the Folsom Chamber of Commerce, Folsom Tourism Bureau, and Folsom Economic Development Organization is leading the effort to safeguard the economic vitality of Folsom. The Folsom Tourism Bureau has had a BID since 2002, and based on stakeholder feedback and support, completed a renewal of that BID in 2013. In addition to her leadership in developing the brands for Visit Folsom and Choose Folsom, Marianne leads the marketing and communications team for the partnership, in addition to marketing Folsom's major events such as the Folsom Pro Rodeo and Folsom Live. Regionally, Marianne served as the president of the Gold Country Visitors Association and as marketing specialist with her partners on Highway 49. The members work collaboratively on itinerary development, media trips, and developing the international visitor potential. Marianne has 25 years of career experience in marketing, training and business development, as well as event management. As a resident of Folsom since 1998, she is excited to promote her community and work with the team in shaping the future of Folsom. She's a big part of what I do personally in my business. Happy to call her an important asset with our group and certainly within the city of Folsom. Anand Patel. Anand Patel is the president, CEO of the Fairfield Conference and Visitors Bureau and specializes in tourism, marketing, hospitality management, and finance. His background and education provides a very unique insight into the tourism and hospitality industry. Prior to joining the Fairfield Conference and Visitors Bureau, Anand was the general manager of the Hawthorne Inn and Suites in Napa, California, and general manager and managing partner of the Holiday Inn Express Hotel and Suites in Fairfield. Concurrently, he and his partners in 2001 built the Holiday Inn Express Hotels and Suites. Anand's hospitality background goes back to his childhood and is practically in his blood. His family has been in the hotel business since a very young age, and his extended family continues to own and operate hotels all over the country. Indian Americans own and operate almost 60% of all hotels and motels in the United States. His strong ties within the community and professional organizations such as the Asian American Hotel Owners Association and the California Hotel and Lodging Association have created long-lasting relationships amongst leaders and decision makers within and supporting the industry. Melanie Cottrell, did I pronounce that correctly? Almost. Well, I'd love to get it right if you don't mind. Cottrell, thank you very much. Ms. Cottrell began her career in the legal field at the firm Gardner, Janes, Nagin, Hugo, and Nolan. Probably butchered one of those, I apologize. While attending California State University, Sacramento. While at CSUS, she was inducted into the Pi Kappa Phi, Phi Alpha Theta, and Golden Key Honor Societies. She earned a bachelor's degree in history with honors. Ms. Cottrell has spent several years managing the operation of assessment districts, specializing in budget and legal document preparation. In her nearly 8-year tenure at Civitas, she has specialized in compliance issues for districts and nonprofits. She is the immediate past president of the Sacramento Valley Paralegal Association and a distinguished Toastmaster. And our last panelist, Brian Wright. Brian Wright currently serves as Visit California's DMO and Executive Relations Liaison, working with all in-state destination marketing organizations, chambers of commerce, and convention and visitors bureaus on strategic tourism-related initiatives to increase visitation throughout the state. Brian has more than a decade of executive-level experience in the travel industry. He previously served as Visit California's Senior Director of Communications, where he was responsible for the planning, execution, reporting, and management of internal and external communications, public affairs, consumer and industry media relations, and special event programs within the organization. Prior to Visit California, he served as Director of Marketing for Delaware North Companies, Parks and Resorts at Yosemite National Park. While at DNC, he also oversaw sales, marketing, and e-business efforts at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and served as chair of Visit California's Communications Committee, where he was extensively involved in the organization's marketing and communication initiatives. So clearly, I think, we've assembled what I would say a panel of experts. Again, the intent is to garner questions, try and answer as many of them. But I think we're going to lead off today and ask the panel to just kind of describe, their role a little bit more succinctly, derive a little bit more history from them maybe personally, and talk about kind of the trends in tourism in general. So maybe we'll start with Mary Ann.
Certainly. Thank you, Rob. So Folsom, as I think we mentioned in my bio, has had a BID, Business Improvement District, in place since 2002. As a matter of fact, we were one of the early adopters in the state of California. A lot of that was driven at the time by a desire for Folsom to create a brand that would lead us to, I think, a much stronger hospitality community, and that would also offer an opportunity for our partners to be more specific in how they could increase their visitation. They wanted to basically be able to have a say in how the future developed for the hospitality community. So the adoption of the BID in 2002 was the very beginning of, I think, very good conversations about our brand. I have to tell you, we weren't nearly as far along as I think Amador County is in identifying its brand and the reasons that people want to visit. As you heard, I've been in many media shows where I've been representing Gold Country as a whole, and I've answered many questions about Amador because there's a lot of name recognition about the county and an interest that's already out there that I think can be further cultivated. Folsom was not in that desirable position. We were pretty much an unknown. As a matter of fact, I think we were a stop on Highway 50 that many of the people in our drive market drove by, knew that it was there, might have thought about Johnny Cash, might have thought about when we got our In-N-Out. That was big because the sign was visible from the freeway. These were some of the attributes that people knew, but of course they had no understanding of our historic district or of our two lakes or of the 52 plus miles of bike trail. They didn't really understand the amenities of Folsom because it wasn't visible, but yet that was a lot of our target market. And of course, many of them were en route to Tahoe or other destinations. And so forming a BID gave us an opportunity to really coalesce our partners, create a brand, and actually develop a sustainable program of marketing. The challenge, I think, as you probably have already heard in prior discussions, was that we needed a well-executed and well-thought-out marketing plan, and in order for that to be successful, we needed a reliable funding source. Which is exactly what the BID offered. And so we successfully renewed it with a lot of input from our partners. We made some small changes in direction, but by and large, we continued to grow the brand much the same way that we had originally envisioned. When we first started, we had 4 hotel properties. Today, we have 8. And so a lot of that has been a function of the increased visibility of Folsom. And in a community of our size, we have 70,000 residents, just for purposes of relativity. In a community our size, that has allowed many people that come to Folsom to visit end up asking us questions about how they could live there. And they want to know more about the community because they have totally reshaped their perception about what Folsom has to offer. So that has been the biggest benefit of our program, is that we have seen year-over-year growth, and obviously the continued addition of hotel properties would not be occurring unless there was a well-documented track record of growth over that same time period.
Thank you, Marianne. Anand?
Hi. Our TID started in a very similar fashion back in 2003. I was in the hotel side of things at that time, which banded together with a couple of the other larger hotels to form the district back in 2003 that went live in 2004. I served on its board of directors for many years as treasurer, and as they became an opening about 6.5 years ago, well, a little over 6 years ago, I decided to make the jump over from the hotel side to the CVB side, as I saw that there was a real interest in that world. And you'll find that actually pretty common within our industry. In fact, a lot of times they joke when you go around and give introductions, we claim to be recovering hoteliers. And as far as the CVB goes, I could literally take what Marianne just said and replace Folsom with Fairfield, because we were the stopover. We didn't have an identified brand. We had one big 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is we are the home to Jelly Belly Candy Company, which is an internationally known organization or candy company. They bring in almost 550,000 visitors per year. However, they drive through, they stop, they get their candy, and they keep on driving. So the goal is really to allow those visitors to see that there's a lot more to do in Fairfield than just the candy company. And most people will drive by another huge building, another international brand, which is Budweiser, which now brews almost 30 different beers across or at that particular plant. And then we also have a wonderful wine country. But bringing all those pieces together and convincing those that we market to stop in Fairfield or stay in Fairfield versus staying in San Francisco or staying in Napa. We have the unique benefit of having hotels that are in a little bit more of a budget-sensitive, area, whereas in a lot of those larger destinations, it's just getting very cost prohibitive. So we've definitely been able to see the growth in that. When we redid our TID to the new 94 Act, if you will, about 4 years ago. Originally, our budget was supposed to be around 550,000. We cleared almost 925. So clearly, the success is in the numbers. We've had a huge growth in international markets and just regular leisure tourism. So, and I've work with Maureen and a lot of these shows we're out there on the weekends and selling our destinations, and it's really about people recognizing that they can relate to Fairfield because of Jelly Belly. They've been there, but they see everything else, and it's really kind of that convincing factor. So, and that wouldn't have been possible without these efforts. So,
I don't know about you, but you said 500,000 people. Then I started doing pounds per person. I don't know why, but I did. But that's maybe the engineer in me. Melanie, if you would, thanks.
Well, I don't want to admit to you how many pounds per person I have had at the Jelly Belly factory. Thank you. You've probably heard of visitors bureaus. It's fairly familiar to you, but my company, Civitas, probably is not. Civitas has been around since 1995. We specialize in assessment districts, particularly these tourism districts, as we are proposing to form here in Amador. We have worked with 80 out of the 97 districts in the state of California, and we have also worked with several out of state. You can learn more about tourism districts in general if you'd like to visit tourismimprovementdistrict.com. There's a whole bunch of resources on that website where you can learn more. My role in this project has really been technical assistance and, as mentioned earlier, compliance. My job is to draft this management district plan, to help out with all of the technicalities. I know there were some questions posed on TOT versus TMD and that kind of thing. That's really my area of expertise and where we come in.
Brian?
Great. Well, thank you. So I work for the Visit California with the state's tourism office, and we're basically a giant TID. We get our money again from the industry. We're not government funded at all. We get all of our money from hotels and attractions and restaurants throughout the state of California, and so it's basically the same thing we're looking at doing here. From a marketing standpoint, I think from our point of view, marketing works when you're talking about marketing a state or a destination, and it takes money to market. So when you're looking at what Visit California has done over the years, we were capped at, and this is a big number, we were capped at $50 million, but we were getting behind the ball. We were looking at folks like Indiana who had they were at $70 million. So we were able to raise that cap and get our marketing up again, and then the numbers we've been double-digit growth every single year. Right now, we're bringing in, as far as direct spending to the state, about $122 billion in direct spend. Now, that's us bringing it into the state, and so what needs to happen now is you need to take it here. It has to come here. And so that's what it takes from some good marketing efforts to be able to pull that off. We are excited to be here. Tourism is in my blood. It's the same thing as kind of Ahmed and the gang here, and just looking forward to answering some of your questions today.
Great. So before we get into questions, is there anything specific about background about any of them that, if you'd like to ask, happy to embed that into the conversation. I would, just for my own edification, as part of the conversation, by raise of hands, how many are actual lodging partners in the room today? So maybe a half. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much for that. So I'll lead off the question, and I don't know that there's any one specific question to any one individual, but to the extent that that there's somebody that feels that they have a burning desire, we could absolutely take all four answers. So I'd appreciate that. So maybe just starting off with a basic one. How does a TMD differ from a TOT? So
That's fine.
I think that's Melanie's.
I'll try not to bore you with too much legalese here. TOT is a tax that is placed on the customer of your hotel. That tax goes back to the county, city, wherever you are, and the county or city can essentially use that for whatever they need. Initially, when TOT was conceived, the hope was that those funds would be used for marketing. But because it's a tax that the county or city can use generally as it pleases, what has happened over the years is we've seen those funds diverted to police, fire, things that are pretty tough to argue against when you are the Tourism Bureau. Particularly in the 2008 downturn, we saw a lot of those funds that had previously been dedicated to marketing or attractions that bring in visitors really being diverted to public services. A TMD is not a tax, and it is not on the hotel guest, although it is passed on to the hotel guest. An assessment is what the TMD levies, and it is different from a tax in that that assessment can only be used for very particular purposes. The county and the cities cannot take that money and put it towards police, fire, roads, anything else. The only items that those funds can be used for are those that are laid out in this management district plan, which is sales and marketing. That's it. That is the absolute only thing those funds can be used for. When TOT is implemented, it's implemented forever. When you create a TMD, it's only a 5-year commitment. After 5 years, we have to come back to the hotels. We have to go through the petition process again, and then we can renew it for up to 10 years if the hotels are supportive. And as you've heard Anand and Marianne both mention in their districts, they started out even year to year, and then were able to renew their districts for, Anand's going for 10 years, and Marianne, I think you're in 15 years now, is that right? 15 years. That's the difference between TOT and TMD. Are there any follow-up questions on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Dominic. You just have to speak up. It's not a PA, Dom. It's just getting recorded.
Okay. My question is, can you have a TOT and a TMD at the same time on the same
Yes, absolutely.
I actually have a follow-up to that. You know, and I'm going to let you come back to that in a second, Marianne. But relatively, what's the typical number spread between a TMD and a TOT? And I know that, say, for instance, a Fairfield and Folsom, it might not be the same for another, you know, a different marketplace. But I'm just kind of curious if there's a metric.
It really varies by the jurisdiction. Typically, TOT, very typically, will range from 10 to 14, 15%. A TMD is typically 1 to 2%. There are TMDs that go up to 4%. There are places where the TOT is only 8%. But
Okay.
generally speaking, it's about 10 to 15% TOT and 1 to 2% TMD.
Gotcha. Thank you. Marianne, you had a comment?
I was just going to mention an additional element is that if the TMD is successful, it actually has a positive impact on the TOT because an increase in the visitation garners more funds for the municipal partner as well as for the lodging partners. So they track together, and it provides increased visitation, which in theory would generate more, in addition to the increase in TOT, it would also increase taxes because of the multiplier effect for retail, et cetera. So there is a much bigger picture than just the TMD and the TOT, and it has to do with that multiplier effect and how it really ultimately brings significant increase in revenue to the city when a TMD is implemented.
Our TOT is 10%. Originally, when we were first formed in 2004, we had a 2% assessment. When I came on board, we went through a marketing study and found that we had a market in particular that we were not focusing on. However, we did not want to divert funds from our existing projects to go after that market. So we actually went through a new TID under 5 years and increased that to 3%. The big fear at that point was, well, wait, you're going to be the highest, collective percentage in the county, and realistically, when you talk about that 1% difference between us and, for example, Vacaville, and actually Vacaville's going through theirs right now, and they're going to one up ours, so they're actually going to go up to a 4% assessment, I believe. So they'll be at 14%. But there, when you pencil that out, nobody's going to drive 15, 20 minutes to save 25 cents in gas. It just doesn't pencil out that way. And even our independent properties, which really were the people that were most concerned about it, really never had major concerns as to losing that potential business because it remained in market.
To additionally give you some feedback on your question, when we went through our renewal, a very specific concern we had was not so much what the TMD and TOT rates were, but what they presented collectively. So to Anand's point, we looked at what is the tolerance level, and we went out and got competitive data from the surrounding partners, as well as some research that we had through Civitas about the what is the level that people will accept. And so that was really, if you know what your TOT is, that helps you to determine the rate on the TMD, because it really matters at the end of the day what they present together. And I think at that point, and probably it sounds like somewhat similar, 15% in total is kind of the tolerance level that most of the partners seem to be comfortable with, and we were still below that. So that was a gateway to being able to proceed with an increase in our assessment.
So taking a formed or established TMD as a model, just kind of it's formed, what are the typical outcomes after it's been established? What kind of metrics can we anticipate? Is there any way to measure success or failure? Is there any of you can help with that question?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that I'm sure most CVBs, depending on what their markets that they go after, are going to be able to use as metrics. Unfortunately, in a high leisure market area, myself included, we can only look at the numbers. We can't look at. We can look at our website activity. We can look at how many bookings we receive through our website. We look at how much our pay-per-click campaigns converted into actual booking reservations, things of that sort. In other markets that focus heavily on, whether it's travel trade, which we also do, the tour bus market, we can present numbers that show, hey, we did, 10,000 room nights last year in market from tour bus operators, from people that we marketed to directly. These types of events that we attend in order to capture that business, the individual hotels have a major barrier to entry to get there. It's just not it's cost prohibitive. It doesn't make sense for one individual hotel to go to the National Tour Association and set up a booth to market to these tour operators, but it does make sense for a destination to go and market for the hotels at large, because they're not going to come to XYZ city because you have a nice hotel. They're going to come to the destination because there's something there, and so that's the big kind of difference there as to overall outcome. Obviously increased visitation, increases in TOT, and in the same regard, the TID assessment, and that's it.
From the state level, we do the same thing. Our three big metrics are direct travel spending, jobs created, and then, of course, visitors coming through the state. So we track those
Metrics,
incremental.
you can see a correlation to a TMD implemented and to a direct net positive result to those metrics you identified.
Right, and I'm talking from a state perspective at this point in time. But yes, as we increase our spending, the ROI we look at it's a pretty significant ROI. We want to make sure that we're hitting that from a direct travel spending, and then per visitor visit.
Why don't we start taking some questions? Dominic?
My question is, the most of the TOT in Amador County, it's different for you. You're in your big cities, but most of the hotels are in a certain area in Amador County. For example, it seems like Jackson has the most TOT generated because Jackson has 5 or 6 hotels. So another area may not have any. And it's just, is there any way where places that are outside the TOT district can participate in the marketing of the TOT? I said that really badly, but
Well, let me see if I can
hopefully
for you, Dom. I think what you're suggesting is there a way for those that are outside physically the benefiting community, the community that has the hotels, that's generating the revenues to participate. I think that's what you said. Is there any reaction to that?
Well, the answer is absolutely. That's actually the plan here, is to include hotels in all of the cities and the unincorporated county. So as long as you are within the county limits, you would be included and your business would be marketed.
Any other questions in the room? Atul? Or
My name's Ken Sutton, Shenandoah and Plymouth. I have kind of a unique market over there. I have close to 45 wineries within 10 minutes of me. Fairgrounds half mile away. We've recently lost one of our rodeos because the fairgrounds weren't up to par, and I understand it's state owned and we can only do so much at that point. We've had a couple other events in the area that we have lost. Some of it due to funding, some of it not. I've lost some of my business. I believe some of it has to do with some of the increase of TOT from 6 to 10% to me at my hotel in the Plymouth area. I'm trying to figure out what exactly can this do for me, because I'm in a unique situation.
can I get somebody to help me?
What's what you said? It's went from 6 to 10%,
Went from 6 to 10% in over Plymouth.
and that's just TOT.
Yes, that's TOT.
So I guess my answer to that would be, you're not getting any bang for your buck with that 4%. Plain and simple. That's
I advertising in other areas, and I've worked on advertising in other areas, but it doesn't seem to draw anything in. It's all mostly word of mouth, TripAdvisor, Yelp, Google, so forth like that. My amenities. You say you'd mentioned that has nothing to do with hotel quality. I believe it does. I offer a lot of good amenities. I'm running a 4.5 out of 5 for over 7 years straight. So I'm drawing in the business I can, but I still feel like I'm losing business because I look at my numbers this year compared to last year and so forth, and my numbers are definitely going down.
And what I meant by that 4% not giving you any bang for your buck is that, one, obviously the guest is paying that, but secondly is that, as Melanie had pointed out, that's going directly to the city for city services. Is that correct? That's what, okay, can you, okay.
I can assist a little bit with helping explain what Ken is referring to. The same year that we increased our county, our unincorporated TOT from 6% to 10%, we also did it in the city of Plymouth. And you are absolutely correct that the funds, the increase in TOT funds is still in the city of Plymouth. And there is a pile of funding there, but no real access unless you bring specific programs to the city of Plymouth. It's part of our overall branding campaign that we need to get more participation at that end of the valley.
And you also mentioned the advertising piece, that you work hard on advertising your specific property. But again, as I mentioned, within a market or a county-wide effort, those economies of scale grow significantly. You know, this organization is going to have greater access to some areas of marketing and advertising that just wouldn't make sense for you as an individual property to spend money on. I mean, again, coming from the hotel side, I remember making that line item decision of, oh, should we advertise in this or that or whatever, versus having it as a collective group. Let's get them into the county and then figure out how to get that word of mouth out.
We're talking about 4% in increase.
Right.
I know for a fact 1% is going to the city of Plymouth. But I guess we subcontract with fire and the county deputy sheriff, so forth like that. So we don't have any actual people in the area except for some fire and ambulance, which also is based out of this area here. So I'm just trying to figure out what exactly can be done to market my property or the properties over in the Plymouth area if we go with this.
So I may not be able to specifically answer that, but let me just tell you a few thoughts I had as you were speaking. One is that I think when Anand referred earlier about the property, what we're philosophically saying is that people make travel decisions about coming to a region in general, as opposed to saying in their head, I want to go to a specific place in that region. Once they're interested in their region, the many amenities and your great rating will help you to stand out as one of the properties of choice, because there are other amenities in the region. You just pointed out about the wineries and those types of things, which is very, very positive. So it doesn't in any way shortchange you, because you're already going to stand out based on that rating. What it does is broaden the platform that you can be visible in much more significantly than you can do independently. And we know, because of our work collaboratively with Gold Country, that a lot of our opportunities there are to educate people about what their experience is going to be when they visit this region. And some of those same amenities you pointed out are drivers of people making a decision. So what I would see happening for you is you're going to take the hard work you've already invested in building a high quality property that's well reviewed in peer-to-peer sites, and then you're going to leverage that with some marketing that's going to be going on around you about the region. So you're going to have those efforts working on your behalf, and you're going to continue to stand out. So it could be, you mentioned about facilities, and I know that comes up a lot in tourism marketing discussions, but I think that the opportunity that's there with the TMD is to sit down with partners like yourself and say, who do you want to go after? Where do you think you're the strongest? What are the opportunities for us to create a marketing plan that showcases that? Some of the events, for example, Folsom decided, you know what, we don't want to compete in a very focused way for tournaments because we happen to be surrounded by municipalities that have more facilities than we do. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that with not the kind of return. However, we do have natural amenities that are well suited to events like half marathons, triathlons. Those are great room night generators. It's also an opportunity for us to incentivize people to lengthen their stay. So over the last 5 years, we've acquired the American River 50 miler. I will tell you that going after events like that or whatever would happen to be suited to your particular set of amenities, in many cases in today's market, those events require event underwriting of some type, whether that's partially in trade and partially in cash, but a lot of those events do require some commitment out of a budget. Once again, that's where the TMD comes in. My partners look to me when we want to get the Intercollegiate Rowing Championships, which is a huge piece of business that's coming in June this year. The money to underwrite that is coming out of our budget. The event underwriting fee is being paid from our BID funding. So those are some examples, yet the residual benefit of that comes to all the properties that participate in Folsom, all have an opportunity to go after that business in as focused a way as they choose, and it's a very beneficial arrangement. And does that help answer that question? Okay.
What we still have, though, is I still have my customers are coming in the door. A lot of them, the ones that I haven't lost, are new customers, whatever, booking online, booking.com, so forth like that. They're still coming in, and they'll call me up and say, well, what's your tax rate? And I'll tell them. They'll kind of cringe. You can hear them over the phone just about cringe. Or they walk in the door, and you tell them what the tax rate is once you give them the initial rate. Did you guys raise your rates or something? Well, I haven't raised my rates in quite a while. But still, that tax increase from the 6 to 10% is still a big increase, and I still feel like if I raise it anymore, I might be losing more business.
I'll just a bit of a stab at this while I'm the moderator. I do have just some thoughts for you because I hear you, right? I feel this. For me, you got to segregate the TOT from the TMD somewhat. I know that's difficult to do, but what I think we're trying to convey, or at least the panel is trying to convey, is there's strength in numbers, right? That 2% is going to leverage all of the others, and you're going to have I think you're going to have the benefit of that. That 10% TOT is a policy decision that your leaders in Plymouth have made. How they spend that's probably an important conversation to continue to have. But I would say that 2% to get more heads in beds is going to be derived out of that 2% that this group is talking about.
I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I'll tell you that one of the reasons we undertook our renewal process when we did was that we knew that our city leadership was taking a look at what TOT rates were in the area, and we predicted that they would be looking at another TOT increase, which would derive zero benefit to our partners. So we undertook our rate increase specifically because we wanted to grab that share of the market for our partners and continue one of the only self-sustaining funding cycles in any kind of municipality is a TMD, because basically the more funds that are collected, the more marketing occurs, the more customers are driven for overnight stays, and the cycle continues to fund in a very successful manner. So we really did it anticipating, which happens pretty much everywhere that I've seen, when city or new leadership comes in and they look around and say, what else can we do to generate additional monies? An increase in TOT always is on the table. But once we increased our TMD rate, we were right where we should be, and now we're competitive, but if they were to increase our TOT, we would not be. So it gave us some protection about that as well, and it assured us that the funds would be derived, that were coming from that funding source would go specifically to marketing. So
I think where you're headed is, what are the specifics? I think you're looking for some granular, topical, tangible, where's that, what can I do? So let me give you one example, totally off the top of my head. We've got golf courses, right? In the community, you've got hotels over there. Maybe you've got an event that's occurring, a wedding party. Maybe the TMD could underwrite some sort of bus travel over to the golf course. That becomes not out of your direct pocket, but part of the venture with TMD, and they provide that. that resource, that transportation link that you otherwise would have had to come out of your specific pocket, but now comes out of a budget here. That's but one minor example, but I'm sure there are many, many others.
So I think it's important to kind of look at the tourism it's structure that we have here set up, right? So we've got Visit California, and we get people excited about coming to California, and we market it globally. So if they're not thinking about coming to the United States, if they're not thinking to come to California, they're not coming here. Then we've got that middle area for the Gold Country, and if they're not coming to, now they're coming to California, but now you got to, they have to come to Gold Country, so otherwise they're not coming here. Then we've got Marina out there going, hey, now come to Amador, and so what that money will actually do is it goes to her and it grows that pool. Because right now you're just talking to whatever Marine can actually afford to talk to and get out there. And what this does is just this increases that. Then Marine gets to work with Gold Country even more, gets to work with Visit California more, because we're out there, again, we're pushing this globally. So we want to make sure that, I think from that what that 2% does, that it takes that pool of who we're looking at, who you're marketing to, and just expands it.
And to add on to that, one of the questions that we were given beforehand was, what questions should I be asking? And you are asking a question that we hear from every single district that we form. This is a very, very common question, and it's a good question to ask, because you're right. This does go on to your customers, and it is absolutely something that you should be thinking about and asking. Ondon alluded to this earlier, in that his hotels were asking the same question of, am I pricing myself out of my market? And we get asked that question so much that we actually did a survey of 170 TIDs all around the U.S. and asked them that question. And by and large, they came back and said, no, we have not been priced out of the market. What we've seen is that the additional marketing that we're doing is actually making up for anyone, that one or two people that have been coming here for the last 30 years that now have decided they're priced out. By and large, our businesses are now doing better. And in terms of the management, as you mentioned, Brian, the money goes to Maureen, but it's not just Maureen. We are not giving Maureen a blank check to do whatever she wants with it. Sorry, Maureen. But we actually have written into your documents that we will be creating a new committee that will actually be managing the funds and making recommendations as to programs. And that committee can include hotels, and those decisions will take into account your question. How does this impact Plymouth? How does this impact Jackson? How does this impact me way out in the county? All of that will be taken into consideration when the programs and the events are decided upon. And all of those meetings, by the way, are open to the public. This is a public body just like your cities are. They cannot have meetings closed to you. They cannot conduct business by email. All of their business is open and public, and you are invited to attend any of those meetings and sit on the committee if you're even interested.
Okay, you say you're going to have a committee. Okay, is this a paid committee or a volunteer committee?
Volunteer.
Okay.
There may be some free coffee.
Let me add, Maureen, can I just add one thing that might be helpful too? When you're thinking about your customer on the phone and you heard them stop for a moment, I think Rob made a great suggestion. We've had several programs that we've put together on behalf of our partners, but you mentioned that you have a lot of wineries close by, and I'm imagining you collaborate with them. Okay, so what we do in our, because Folsom has no wineries, we have wine tasting rooms, but no wineries, but we do, of course, have close proximity to both El Dorado County and Amador. So we started a program with some of our partner wineries in El Dorado County that is, and we, as the Tourism Bureau, purchase wine from them at wholesale price. We have a themed bag, we package it, and we offer it to our hotel partners, and they put packages on their website that give some of their members wine club privileges for a day. We went out, secured the offers, created the collateral, purchased the wine bags, and so it's out of our budget. So those questions that you're mentioning, I think, diminish when someone sees the additional elements that might, or amenities that maybe the TMD creatively produced could give you in your marketing efforts for your specific property. So, well, that's, I'm sure, one of the reasons that you have such great ratings.
My name is Atul Patel. I have a Holiday Inn Express, and there's another small property in a county here. Maureen and ACT and Rob, everybody is asking about the forming this TMD for a while. And the only question I have for first to begin, okay, is you mentioned that TOT it goes to the county, okay, or city, and it does not have any restriction on where they spend that money. We've been paying in Jackson 10% for a long time. And Jackson, because I'm on one of the board member to distribute when it comes to distribute that some money. I get invited to that, and city distribute to a different organization to promote, including ACT and other organizations. So ACT promoted about 4 years ago from 6% to 10%. At that time, it was mentioned that that will be used to market. We need to be uniform throughout the county, and it will be promoted, and it will be used to promote the county. And I haven't seen for past 4 years any other events or the business took place with that 4%. So you know, like the bigger question is, if that money is gone to the county, but then it was promoted, and this money, as you mentioned, that it will be governed by the lodging partner or anybody in that board can distribute and then bring the events together. So, you know, we don't have a trust that, you know, like that money goes to the right channel. Secondly, if that past 4 years, that budget has gone double by collecting 4% for the TOT tax, you know, like where that money is gone, you know, like, and that should have been used for the county benefit to promote county, and that's what been promoted at that time, and it never been done. And then question comes that why only lodging partner? Why only lodging has to pay? Why lodging? We are not paying. We know that TOT is guest is paying, all right? And what Ken mentioned is that he's advertising a lot. That goes out of his revenue, okay, or bottom line. And on top of it, that we are not paying for the tax, but we are collecting from the guests who are visiting. We are penalizing them by doing that. We need a bigger voice. I understand. I pay my taxes for the Visit California, and I pay, you know, like a heavy amount. I'm not saying no to that. I'm all for that because they send out booklets to us whenever I call. It's already online. I get that. But as you mentioned that, you know, like it's a smaller county, we have to promote our county. We have too many organizations here, and we are collecting all these taxes. But then, you know, like it's not been used or funnel because there are too many admin partners are going on. So, you know, like it's just that is a concern right there by putting this additional tax. And Ken mentioned that the guests are complaining. They tell us that, you know, like it's hard to find cheaper place around here. In like you go to Stockton, you go to Modesto, you go to Fresno, it's much cheaper. And they have, we tell them, go to that county, go stay there, but we cannot just turn away everybody, but they do complain.
Atul, I think you have a couple of questions in there. I'm going to try and see if let's take the last one first. I think I heard the question about price and how it's potentially going to hit his customer, that this 2%. Can anybody react to that or help with that question specifically?
Well, I would take, and you don't need to say this out loud, but whatever your ADR is, you know, annually, and really think about that compared to your length of stay average, and really calculate that out. Are you really deterring somebody as a result of what potentially could be $6 to $10 for a 2 or 3 night stay, I mean, again, this was the way I sold it to my hotels, was somebody's not going to drive, in your case, even a bigger stake, because mine was leaving a city and can drive 10 minutes one way and 10 minutes the other way and be in another city. This is a county-wide assessment. Somebody's not going to drive, and I just drove here from Fairfield today. Let me tell you, the county line is way the heck behind me. So with cell signal lost in between, somebody's not going to, and you mentioned Stockton, Fresno. I can bet you almost guaranteed they are at 12% or higher for each of those cities.
Yeah, but their ADR is low, but because they have to compensate somewhere.
I don't think there's I don't think that any hotel is lowering their price because of an assessment increase. Especially, again, if you pencil to paper and you say, okay, here's my average daily rate, here's my average length of stay, and you multiply that out as to total revenue that you've received, and you take that 2%, it's going to be so nominal that I can't foresee a guest. And again, in our market, we haven't had a single guest, to my knowledge, and this comes from even when I ran a hotel, complain about any type of assessment. People travel the world and the country these days, and let me tell you, having 2 line items on a folio that shows room revenue, TOT, and tourism assessment, that's a simple folio. Let me tell you, you go to some of these cities, and when you've got 4 to 5 different line items underneath those, I scratch my head. I seriously do. And now, there's other individual hotels that are starting to put resort fees and things of that sort. I mean, it's not a simple process. I get you're not a San Francisco, neither am I. But ultimately, guests are typically, they're used to paying this type of an assessment. They're used to seeing multiple line items. I know a lot of the larger San Francisco properties have a line item specifically for the Visit California assessment because they are allowed to and do pass that on to the guest. In properties like mine, it wasn't big enough to where I'm not going to put a penny assessment for each guest because it just looks ridiculous. I'll just pay the assessment on my own out of my bottom line because I do see the value. And sorry, just to capitalize, you mentioned Visit California and what they support as far as booklets and things of that sort. Now, keep in mind that we can advertise all day long and get guests here. But you also have a big market of guests that are already coming here and those that have been attracted here. The collateral and the pieces of information that this organization brings to the table, our hotels call us almost on an every other day basis. We need more visitor guides. We need more map pads. We need more brochures. When I ran my property in Fairfield, we had a guest that just showed up. They're from London, a couple from London. They had a reservation for 2 nights. They ended up staying 3.5 weeks because my front desk staff was trained with the collateral and things that were provided by the Conference and Visitors Bureau that sold them on those extra nights. That's going to be your easiest sell, is using those tools that you receive from the CVB, from the TMD to be able to market to your individual guests that you've already got in your hotel. They don't want to necessarily leave. They may have some leeway in their travel plans to be able to extend those stays. And that's going to take some training on the part of the staff, which I imagine, we have a similar program where we train frontline employees. We'll take them around and show them all that there is to do so they get excited about it. So that was...
Thank you. That was any other follow-ups to that? Because I have a go ahead.
Yeah, so, and then the other, I think you made a point about the 6 to 10%, that 4%, not being, being told it's going to be used for marketing, and then it not being used for marketing. I think that's the point we were trying to make, actually, is that what Melanie was saying, that's that 2% now that we're looking at, the guys looking at implementing here, that's guaranteed to be used only for marketing. That 4% can be used for anything else. It's up to the whim of the city council to say, okay, we can give X amount of money to the Tourism Bureau to use at this point in time. So they could say that, but in actuality, we don't know what actually happens because that money is available. It goes to the general fund, so it can be used for anything. This does not go to the general fund.
To piggyback on that, Atul, I think one of the themes that I've heard from today and past discussions is more of a governance discussion. You're frustrated with how governance on these issues occurs, how you don't have a seat at the table, how they can spend money in that direction when you want to go in that direction. I think what I've heard today primarily from Melanie and kind of on that governance structure, is this committee is going to be critically important to the success of this district. I've been involved in many a district. I can tell you that any district success is generally created with a collaborative approach and a governance structure with people at the table, people that have a vested interest in where those go. And I think the beauty of this district, in all candor, is that you and your other partners will have a seat at the table as to how it would be spent, how it would be used, and how that revenue stream is going to be deployed. Because it's not going to be just made by Maureen, it's not going to be made by, one or two people. It's going to be made everybody in a room kind of going, okay, this is how we should spend this money, and this is what these are our expectations out of that money. So, any other questions here? Oh, you got a follow-up?
Well, I just want to mention one thing, and that is you mentioned about the guest in Stockton, and with all respect to Stockton, we're partners and they have strong leaders, but it's not the same experience as here. So for all intents and purposes, the job is to accurately communicate what the experience is going to be for someone who's in Amador. And when that's well done, some of that will go away. Folsom, as you may know, is immediately adjacent to Rancho Cordova, which is a much different community, and we are blessed with more amenities. But if someone is totally price sensitive and they want to go to Rancho Cordova, they're going to go, because today's customer is very well informed. They have answers in their smartphone that pretty much drive those decisions. So my job is to make sure that the images that I show about what your experience is going to be in Folsom take the discussion about a small difference in rate between one and the other and make it go down to number 6 on the list, because number 1, 2, and 3 are going to be, I can only get these experiences if I'm in Folsom. So I think that's the role of the TMD, is not to be afraid of people going other places, but to find more ways to incentivize them to come to mine.
Next question.
Yeah, so my name is Daisy. I'm from the Days Inn in Sutter Creek. Atul touched on it, and I just wanted to kind of get more of a direct answer as far as why hotels are being targeted for this TOT tax.
That's a good question.
The wine industry in this area, God bless, has been booming the last 10 years. I've been in the area for 10 years, and I mean, seeing it from 2007 to 2017, it's just exploded. It's amazing. And, we have patrons that come in through the hotel that don't stay there, but, they stop in because they see we're a visitor center. They come to use our restroom. And, I do notice that a lot of people do come to the area from Folsom, El Dorado Hills, Sacramento, just on day trips, just to go to the wineries. And, I don't understand why the hotels, so to speak, our guests are being penalized with this tax, and, just to touch on what Anand said about thank you. And just to touch on what Anand said, how you said, you don't see that $6, $5 is going to send away guests. I mean, I've given our guests plenty of times an AARP rate, and they're 30 years old, just to make up the difference on the taxes. Because, we do have the prison that's here locally, and, very bluntly, so to speak, they're not making 6 figures a year. They can't afford the $85 we charge during the weekdays, let alone, upwards of $150 that we could potentially charge on weekends. So I do want to know why the hotels are being targeted.
So I think, to paraphrase the question, the question is, the district appears to be unfairly targeting just the hotel industry, the lodging industry, and why aren't the wineries, bars, and restaurants, those other elements of our culture and industry, why aren't they participating? Can anybody take a stab at that?
I'll go ahead and start, and then Anand can add to this, but we get asked that question all the time. There is, out of the 97 districts in the state, there is one that includes all the businesses in town. That town is Mammoth Lakes, and it is a completely different economy from almost everywhere else we've ever worked in. What we usually see is the programs that we're marketing with the TMD dollars are targeting overnight, out-of-town visitors that are going to come and stay overnight for leisure or for group business at the hotels that have group business. We're really trying to bring in folks to stay overnight. We're not targeting those day trippers with these dollars at all. And that's the consistency in the messaging that we can have when we only include hotels. When we start to include other businesses, the messaging gets really confusing and cluttered, and it makes it much more difficult, because then we're talking about come here for the day. No, come here overnight. Well, which one is it? And we really want to have a consistent target market and focus on that. And that's what only having the hotels allows these dollars to do. Anand?
Actually kind of stole the words right out of my mouth, is that ultimately the goal is that it produces overnight stays. I mean, not to get into the legal side of things, TMDs, TIDs, their specific purpose is that revenue that's collected is intended to specifically benefit those that are paying. So sure, do we use wineries in Fairfield to help bring visitors to Fairfield? Absolutely. Again, they're not coming to, is that Sutter Creek you said? To Sutter Creek to come to your hotel. I'm sure it's a great property, but they weren't coming to Fairfield to come stay at my hotel either. They're coming to Fairfield for a purpose, and it's educating those people about that purpose and whether it fits the needs as to what they're looking for in a visitor experience. That's going to be key. Why not include the others? Well, most likely that assessment is going to, again, it'll cloud the message as to what you're doing. But again, this TMD is controlled by the stakeholders. You guys are all the stakeholders. Now, not to say that you don't have a great working relationship with, let's say, the wineries or XYZ diner down the street, but that does muddy the waters as to messaging and really the motivation as to where you want something to go. All of a sudden, you may have a band of restaurants, and you definitely have more restaurants likely than you do hotels, and you get 20 restaurants to show up to a meeting saying, hey, we want to start doing a big restaurant festival. Okay, well, maybe that's a day trip thing. Is that really going to benefit you as a hotel? So I think the message is that whatever strategy is taken upon by the district, it will be important that it be focused on that overnight visitor. Sure, are there going to be other beneficiaries of it? Absolutely, absolutely. And I believe that there's likely the reverse as well, where there's the hotels that benefit from the fact that people come here to do a weekend of wine tasting and they stay at your hotel. So I think then that argument can probably be made both ways.
I do think there are opportunities as well to look to some of those partners, whether it's wineries or restaurants, to be contributors to, say, a co-op marketing effort championed by the TMD partners. You're trying to drive overnight stays, and then maybe you want to put another ad in the Chronicle, let's say. And you need people, you want the visibility for your destination, for your lodging properties, but you want to showcase the amenities, and it's an opportunity for them to buy in because someone's made it easy. In this case, Maureen says, I have a co-op and this is what you can do. So as Anand said, those people are coming because of the amenities, but it's going to drive benefit to the lodging properties. But in my experience, the lodging properties have a pretty focused desire on what the outcome needs to be, and that would be very, very different if there were multiple contributors.
I would just briefly add just a personal story here coming out of the home building industry. I spent, as I shared earlier at the beginning, that I've spent a good part of my career in both engineering and in real estate development. The project in Castle Oaks and Ione, I distinctly remember, getting buyers to the county and specifically here to either spend money on bubble gum or a house takes an extra effort. It just does. I can tell you that there's a premium that's necessary to sell a house in Ione specifically. I remember waking up one morning to a voicemail from my then employer who was just kind of fit to be tied about the weather that was on Channel 3, and they were talking about this big storm cloud that had come over Amador, but Ione wasn't on the map. And we've got to change that, right? And I distinctly remember that. And I also remember the weekly meetings about the budget that was needed to get people here. Why? Because it's an experience that people don't know otherwise without somebody telling them about it. Maureen?
Hi there. I'm Lindsay Way. I've got the Sutter Creek Inn. I just wanted to say about the TOT tax, to just suck it up, it's really a backdoor tax. It was intended originally in this big cities to cover for parking. And they discovered that the citizens are perfectly happy to vote it in. It's voted in. So the fact that it's not used for the hotels, not used, for tourism that maybe a percentage you would like, doesn't really matter because it's much higher. It's 3 points higher than or it's only 2 points higher now than resale tax, but it's just a way of taxing us. So this is different because this is actually something we have control over. So.
Hi, I'm Marianne McCammett from the Imperial Hotel. I think one of the things that you're hearing from a couple of the lodging partners is a concern about the freeloader effect. The fact that the hotels impose this assessment on their customers and everybody benefits. So I think it might be helpful if you could explain how the marketing will be targeted to get overnight visitors as opposed to day visitors. If you advertise a wine festival, you're actually getting, both. So how do you fine-tune that so that the money is really being focused on overnight visitors?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So in our case, we did a very thorough review of all of our assets. And as I mentioned earlier, we looked for opportunities that didn't require us to do any kind of a capital expenditure on building facilities. We looked at what we already had and how it could be repackaged. We looked at existing events. A good example of that would be the Chamber of Commerce in Folsom produces the Folsom Pro Rodeo. It's in July. Not in our drive market, not that easy to attract people to come stay in Folsom in July. So what we did is we went out to another partner who operates the concessions on Lake Natoma for stand-up paddleboarding, and we secured an introductory offer from that partner, and then we secured an introductory offer from our aquatics center, and we packaged it up with the rodeo tickets and this family patriotic experience that's only available with an overnight stay. So we took existing amenities, packaged them in a way that incentivized people who wanted, and we did a better job of increasing both our photo assets and our web presence so that people could find us and get the information about what this experience was going to be. And seeing it is a much more compelling opportunity than us talking about it, because you still can't get past it's July in Folsom. So by showing you, your family, out experiencing this incredibly fun patriotic evening and having an opportunity for summer recreation, and all of this offer is tied to an overnight stay. For the first time 3 years ago, we started to see the upward trend in overnight stays attached to that event, which I think by anyone's standards is not that easy to market. So the focus needs to be, when you have the early days of your budget, how can we use what we already have? How can we reach out to some of these other partners? I heard you use the word freeloaders. I understand that feeling, but my goal was, how do I reach out to people who will derive benefit from an increase in overnight stays, and how do I bring them to the table to be part of my marketing? And can I ask them to, for example, are they direct, and when they send out emails from some of your winery partners here, are they including lodging offers? Are they looking for opportunities to showcase you to their customers when you're doing the same? I think those conversations can really start to happen when you're bringing some real marketing opportunities to the table. And that's what I look for across the board with my local partners.
The other piece to that is the fact that obviously as you guys kind of select the markets that you're looking at, focusing on, you're not, we're not, when, for example, I don't advertise in my local paper. What's the point? There's either somebody that's already there in market, or it's a local, guest. We market whether it's, significant day travel, or, throughout other states on the West Coast, whether it be Oregon or Nevada, those that need a full day to travel to Fairfield in order to, convert that. On the other side, and that's just print marketing, but on the digital side of that marketing, whether it be, banner ads or things of that sort, a lot of that is trackable as to where these folks are coming in from that are visiting your website, and that's going to give you a better idea of where you may need and want to focus your efforts. And again, those are overnight, just by nature of where you're located compared to the proximity of where that guest is located.
Next question.
My name is Kim, and I'm from Roaring Camp, and I have a unique experience, and I think less for you panel up there, but for the rest of the people here, I think we do a lousy job, you're right, and correct me if I'm wrong, of partnering together. And so I just want all of you to know that I have a wonderful day tour for gold panning, guided gold mining tour, Saturday night dinner party, and I think if we can all partner together to do that, I in turn have people who call me every day who are coming on a day tour and are looking for some place to stay. I am perfectly willing to offer discounts to your people if you are willing to offer discounts to my people, and maybe we can make this whole county work just a little better.
Nice. Any other questions? I do have another question briefly. Kind of this tech world that we're living in with VRBOs and Airbnbs and whatnot. How does that fit or not fit into this TMD effort?
TMD is written right now, any vacation rental with a business license legally operating is included. Airbnb is not included. Airbnb is a very much evolving area of the law for us. We have 2 or 3 very big cities, San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles, where Airbnb does pay. But what we generally see with Airbnb is even getting them to pay TOT is incredibly difficult. And what Airbnb does, their game, is they say, well, County of Amador, I'll give you $100,000 a year and we'll call that my TOT. Take it or fight me in court. And Airbnb has really big pockets to fight that in court, and they absolutely will do that. So what we see oftentimes is the county says, okay, Airbnb, I'll take your $100,000. They have no idea if that has any connection to how much Airbnb is selling. It's a big problem. But at least they're getting something, so oftentimes they're taking that deal. What we're seeing is in some of those places that have cut those kind of deals with Airbnb, they can also cut a similar deal for other marketing money. But it's very, very rare so far in California because it's such a new concept and it's still evolving. Because of that, it's not included in this plan. That's not to say, though, that in 5 years, when Airbnb has evolved a little more, that it couldn't be included at that point.
One more question, more on the kind of the setup of the district, Melanie, probably for you. Given where we are in this process, could you kind of walk through the steps for everybody as to kind of, given where you understand this process to be and where we need to go to get it implemented?
So we're essentially in the middle of the process right now. The process starts with developing this management plan, and then in the middle goes to getting petitions signed, which, as Maureen said, is where we're at now. The petitions have to be signed by businesses that will pay more than 50% of the assessment. If those petitions aren't signed, this goes nowhere, and we're done. If we get the petition signed, then we go through a formal hearing process with the county and all of the cities, where there are at least one hearing in each city. And I believe our lead is is it the county? The county is taking the lead on this, so there will actually be 3 hearings at the county. All of you will receive a notice in the mail of the proposed district. That notice will tell you when those hearings are. You can go to those hearings and express your thoughts to the County Board of Supervisors. And there's also a protest window where if you oppose the formation, during that hearing process, you can submit a letter to the county saying, I oppose this. After all of those hearings, at the very last one, the county will count any protests that are received. If there are protests from more than 50% by the amount paid, then the county cannot form the district. If there are not protests, the county forms the district. It usually takes a few weeks to go into effect. And then it starts being collected by your hotels. You'll get a letter saying this has been formed and you should start collecting this on whatever formation day. After you collect it from your guests, remit it to your jurisdiction, and then it goes to ACT. That, depending on your collection frequency, can be a 3-4 month turnaround. And then ACT and that committee will start deciding what are we actually going to do with this money.
I got a couple of comments. And like you're talking about the 10% that the city takes. Well, how come you guys aren't over there working to tell the city that money was collected for TOT, tax on tourism? Don't spend the money fixing potholes, spend the money promoting your town, because that's what the tax was collected under, that auspices. In the city of Jackson, when we raised our rate from 6% to 10%, we went to the city council, a few business members, O'Toole, and we said, what are you going to do with this extra 4%? How are we going to get anything to benefit us and promote us? And the city said every year, 2% or half the money they collected, they put in a separate source, and there's a business association, O'Toole's on and I'm on it, several members that are own lodging in this town, and people come and bring us their proposals to put an event on in our town, or to fix the museum, or help with the playhouse, many things for the benefit of Jackson. And sometimes when we reach our money that we have, we go and we let outside people come and get the benefit of the money that was raised in the city of Jackson. And I think Maureen will attend to that. She's probably gotten $100 grand or so over the years. How much have you got?
Over the years?
Yeah, since we've been doing it.
Probably 50K.
Okay, so only 50K. How much have you got from any other town? Nothing. So I'm not against the formation of this district. My problem is everybody thinks they own a unique place. I think I own a unique place here. In the first year, I lost 700 grand. The next year, I lost 300. The next year, I lost 130. This year, I'm actually going to make money. And I believe, I'm not worried about I'll ever have competition, because I was a dummy who put $5 million in a 36-room hotel. Nobody's going to come and compete with me. But what my hotel has grown on is the money that I personally have spent advertising and promoting why you want to come here. This gentleman here said it don't matter where the hotel is, they just come to the rooms. I strongly disagree with him. A huge percentage of the people that come and stay at my hotel, they come here to see the ghosts. I don't even believe in the ghosts, but they come here to see the ghosts. They come here to see specific things that are available in our county, because that's how I promote it. I got a John Wayne room in here that John Wayne slept in the hotel. I got a sign in it. I really love this room because I get an extra $50 a night for you people to sleep in here. About 1 out of 8 come down and say, man, that guy is a jerk. And the other ones go, hey, that's pretty funny. And at the end of the year, it generates me quite a bit of money. So what I'm concerned about is, I talked to Maureen, and I offered, when I was one of the first guys, and I offered her $1 a night a room. So in my case here, that would be about $7,500. So if it went to 2%, in my case here, I average a little over $100 a night. So it would. You talking next up to me? Okay, I'll let you.
Thank you.
This is your event, but it's in my hotel. So, well, I want to say one thing about Maureen. I've known her for 35 years. I don't know a harder working person. I knew her when she ran the farmers market. She's done so many things in this community and worked her butt off and never really made any money. And that's the truth. I have a lot of respect for her. We just don't agree on everything. But people that know me, most people know why they don't agree on everything with me. I'm not saying I'm conservative, but Hitler had to look right to find me. So, but what my objection is to this thing is, I realize this group and it's going to be formed, but I kind of feel, in my case, if it's going to be that I'm paying $15,000, $18,000 a year, I can better spend that money promoting my hotel for myself. I don't believe it as a group that it's going to, I know the man that owns the Shenandoah Inn does a good job, a nice guy. I want to spend my money promoting my hotel. He spends his money promoting his hotel. And if this thing happens, then I'm going to be stuck, and I'll participate in it, but I'm going to be very concerned on how the money's spent, because I don't think it's evenly spent in our county. It's spent more Sutter Creek that way than this way. And that's my personal opinion, and Maureen will get up here and give you her opinion. But that's my concern, how this district is spent. And why are not people like you going to the cities and say, give us part of our 10% back that you're stealing for us? Because it's for promotion hotels. It's going to pay for potholes. It's just not right.
I would suggest, because obviously we're all from different cities, and we're here to simply educate you on this process. You were sold a bad bill of goods. You were outright told one thing and something else happened. So perhaps election day comes around and you change that, because that's really the only solution there. I mean, plain and simple. You were told one thing and you were given something else. This document is as ironclad as can be to protect those dollars specifically for this destination at large, marketing the hotels. You mentioned, why not spend why wouldn't I just spend $15,000, $18,000 on my own hotel? Because you're not passing that cost along to the guest. You're not specifically paying that money. You're collecting it from the guest and you're passing it along to the Amador. What's the acronym? Okay, well, yeah, whatever your entity is, you're passing along those dollars. So realistically, when it hits your bottom line, it's neutral. Whereas you spending $15,000 on your own, it is going to affect your bottom line. So that's the difference here, is by you collecting that assessment and passing that along towards a group effort, there's going to be more economies of scale to get the word out. And I apologize, I didn't mean to say that your specific hotel isn't something that somebody would come to, but you know what? Mine wasn't. No, and this is a gorgeous property. Sure, and I get that. Sure, but again, you're not going to be able to pass that along to the guest. You're going to have to take that off your bottom line.
The only thing I would add, Stan, is a common theme here is this whole governance structure, and I keep on coming back to it, is how the money's spent. You need to be at the table. Atul needs to be at the table. Guy in the back room, front room. Everybody needs to kind of be at the table to see how this money's spent if you want it used in a direction that you want it used. I mean, I've heard it 5 times already today from this panel. There's going to be a governance structure. People are going to be in place to help. You're going to be at the table if you so choose to be at the table, and you're going to have a voice as to how this money is spent. I mean, I don't know how more plain and simple that can be described. And candidly, if I was participating in this, we'd want to be at the table. So, go ahead.
We've actually done a couple studies, one in San Diego and one in Colorado, on what happens when the group marketing stops. What happens when you lose your TMD? In San Diego, it actually got put on hold during their renewal process, so they were not marketing with their TMD dollars for about a year. And think about San Diego for a second. It's a huge city. People all over the world recognize San Diego. It's got huge, huge properties with big marketing budgets for their individual properties. They have a TMD. It got put on hold. Their properties saw a huge negative impact when that funding went away, because that marketing, that group marketing, has such a positive impact on all of those businesses. Everything just came crashing down when they stopped it, even though those individual properties were just pouring. I mean, think about the Sheratons of the world. They have huge marketing budgets, and they were pouring money into it, but they couldn't keep up. That lack of the group marketing really, really hurt them. It happened in San Diego. It happened in, I think, the state of Colorado. We did a study there, and they saw the same thing. Washington.
Last question here.
Just to your point about using your money for your hotel, and then this is a very unique hotel. It's a very unique property. When I was the director of marketing for Yosemite, we had. Have you heard of the Ahwahnee Hotel in the park? Right, beautiful hotel, beautiful property. People go there to stay at the Ahwahnee Hotel, but they don't go. But they have to go there to see Yosemite, right? They're going to the destination first. It's all about the destination. Like you have to start there. People aren't going to come back to a place if they don't enjoy the area around it. They're not going to stick in their hotel rooms the entire time. You have to like the area, and you have to promote the area, and you have got to make sure that people understand what there is to do in the area. If that's not happening, people aren't going to come. There's nothing to do in your area, so why am I going to come to your hotel? So these, and I want to say the freeloaders, right? You're worried of these people using. If they weren't around, why are they coming to your property? I mean, if you need these people, more than they need you, right? And so you need to have the stuff happening around you in order to have this destination, this idea, this brand, this want and desire of people to come. They have to be here. They have to want to know and what that is. So it's, without these people around you and promoting those folks who are your friends and your backdoors and you need them as much as they need you.
Next question, final question.
Is this on? Is it on? Okay. I am a county supervisor one of the supervisors for this county, but my former career, I ran the state's 55 marketing programs, which are exactly the same concept as these tourism marketing programs. And Stan, it was really interesting for me to hear your concerns, because it was very common in those marketing programs. In fact, we were sued because some of the large producers of, for example, plums, did not want to pay into a generic marketing program. And the concept behind these programs is to make the pie bigger, so that everybody's piece, whether it's the piece for the National Hotel or the Imperial or Days Inn, whatever it is, gets bigger, because you're attracting more people to this area. And they generally work. In fact, we went to the Supreme Court 20 years ago and won against the big guys. Sandy? It's on.
Just very quickly, you're from larger areas, and a lot of the talk has been about very large programs. What do you feel about the advantage, or what do you feel about the differences, or what about a rural area like we are?
Technically, Fairfield is actually within the scope of a rural area as designated by Visit California. Our regional tourism association is actually the Central Valley Tourism Association. A majority of our revenue out there is agriculture. So we may be close to the Bay Area, we may be close to Napa, but we still are technically a rural community. As far as size and scope, we're 110,000 people. Do we get a lot of traffic through the Interstate 80? Absolutely, we'd have more traffic. But that also takes away from the uniqueness of our destination versus the drive I took today. And quite honestly, when I took that turn on this downtown, I was floored. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I never knew, I didn't know what to picture when I came here, and I was just blown away. So it's getting that vision out there. I don't have that kind of experience. I go strength in numbers, unfortunately. I have to sell a different type of experience, whereas you're going to be able to sell a whole different experience here in Amador County than you will in Fairfield or Folsom or anywhere else.
Maureen, what's your room count in Amador County right now? So when we started in Folsom, our room count was right at about 400. So the different measures, rural means different things. Technically, we also are because we're partners with other destinations on the Highway 49 corridor, we're considered by Visit California to be within a rural marketing area. So actually, to Anand's point, we draw upon that experience because it's pretty compelling for a lot of visitors who want to have what we've always described to at different events when we're talking about this region, and even I think specifically Amador, because you have some showstopper districts here, some very authentic experiences for people. What we've always said to them is if you're from another part of the country, it's as though you walked onto a real movie set and you are having this firsthand experience. That image is compelling. So I don't really think it is a function of the rural as much as it is, size and scope. Like I said, we were half your size when we started. And it really kind of comes down to that. We grew, but that wasn't where we started. And having some consistency and approaching what you think your main message is and really sharpening that message and then putting a marketing plan together is the whole name of the game, and I don't think there's any limitation on that because of a more rural flavor to the area.
Final question?
It's like 100% of all the lodging owners are very unhappy with where the 10%'s going, and they don't want to add to that another 2%. So what about if you could take 2% of the existing TOT and put that into a TMD, because that is really what everybody wanted the TOT to be anyway, and it turns out it's news to me tonight that that's not the case, but it seems like it would be a lot easier where you just took 2% of the TOT and put it into TMD. Wonder how that could be done, or if not.
How could you do that? Or?
No, so technically that couldn't be done, but take a step back and let's approach that question from a macro level. Think about, and Madam Supervisor, I apologize for this in advance. Think about how the government works. It's big, it's slow, it's not responsive, and it's got a lot of stuff that it's thinking about, right? The supervisors are not just thinking about your hotel. They're thinking about the roads and, oh, it's raining. Is it going to flood over here? And the police and the fire and all kinds of stuff. They have a lot of priorities. And
although that TOT is specifically only to be used on tourism, it can be used on road repairs.
okay. So what we see is
That's a good question. Does the TOT go to the general fund, and is it accessible to the general fund? So, did you hear the question?
there were about 3 questions going on at once. Let's narrow it down.
And the TOT tax, does it go to the community or agency's general fund, and is it accessible from the general fund?
Typically, yes. Typically, TOT is a general fund item. On very rare occasions, some TOT, when it is approved by the voters, is dedicated to something. And that may be, Madam Supervisor, what you're getting at is that your TOT may have some of those restrictions on it. But generally speaking, it goes into the general fund and the jurisdiction has discretion.
Couple more questions, it sounds like.
Hi, Tracy Berkner. I just have a statement to make. I've been a lodging owner in Amador County 20 years this year. And in the last 7 years, I approached our partners at Sacramento CVB because they have an improvement district. And I asked them if there was something that we could do as individual property owners besides just being members of our tourism organization and implementing a fee that was similar to a tourism business improvement district. And I was told that through their legal counsel that I could, if I posted it on my website and any of my rate sheets, that there was a TOT tax and then an assessment of a certain amount of money or a percentage of their stay, that I could legally charge that. I've been doing that for 7 years, and I have never had one person say anything about it or ask any questions about it. I do have people that ask, what is the total amount of the stay with the tax? But they don't ask, why is that fee there? And I have been supporting our tourism marketing group for 7 years with this additional monies in addition to my membership fee. And never once has anybody said anything. The other thing is that I look at this TMD as an extension of my marketing. So Stan, you do a lot of marketing, and so do I. And I tell you what, I look at this as an additional part of my marketing budget, and that I have a pretty strong marketing budget, not as strong as Stan's, but I try. But I look at this TMD as another form of marketing for our business. And I won't change my marketing budget, but I will look at this marketing district as an addition to my marketing, that I can say as a partner, I'm getting this much more value out of what I'm putting into it. And so I think that that's huge and a way for all the lodging partners to be able to take a look at that. This isn't cutting into your marketing budget. This is adding to it. So take that.
A couple of other questions. Any more? Who chooses the committee? That's a good question. Melanie, can you help with that? How that committee is formed and how that process evolves?
It's not spelled out in the marketing district plan how we choose the committee, and we're not across the line yet, so it's not a conversation we've had formally. My thought was that because we have 5 municipalities, it would be completely reasonable to have somebody from each of our areas at the table, plus I would expect 1 non-lodging person to be involved. That could be a larger committee or a smaller committee. We already have a marketing committee where a number of lodging partners are, and I would see them dovetailing with each other. Does that answer your question?
Looks like we have one more. Time for one more.
Didn't want to monopolize the floor or anything, but I had one other question or maybe a statement. Maybe I misunderstood when it came up. But I understood that ACT headed the TOT to go from 6 to 10% in our area over there in Plymouth, which I also understood this, like I said, maybe I misunderstood, that I understood that all of the additional 4%, not the additional, all of the additional 4%, but a certain percentage of that, maybe 2%, went to ACT.
Maureen question.
Yeah, maybe that is.
Yeah.
Yes. I did not head the election campaign. It was a partnership with the Amador County Business Council, and Amador Council of Tourism, and I volunteered a number of hours to put flyers out at the county level. We did not work with Plymouth. They were not at the table. There were no commitments made with how the monies would be spent afterward. I have to go pitch it each time. Additionally, I would tell you, the story behind the story is I wanted to do a tourism marketing district at that point in time. And Chuck Hayes and I from 49er Village, who's one of the founding members of CTTC, going back a ways, he and I tried to twist the arm of the committee to do a tourism marketing district because all those funds would have come directly to our organization at that point in time. The committee chose not. And I asked Chuck and so he left the committee, and I went on because, hey, we needed the money. So that's how that went. And then I asked Chuck at a later date, would he help me when we came to the tourism marketing district? He's had an accident, so he's not available today, but he is a strong supporter.
So I probably misunderstood that. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying to clarify that. Thank you.
So I got to tell you, we're 90, this is great. I think this has been an awesome exchange of questions and ideas. I want a round of applause, if you don't mind, for these folks. I thought they did a great job, and thanks for coming.